They'd fought on the battlefields of Southeast Asia for 16 years. More than 58,000 soldiers never made the final march home. But today, for those who did come home, a welcome home parade for the veterans of Vietnam. Complete live coverage next on a special edition of the Channel 5 News.
The dead of Vietnam have already been memorialized, their names etched upon a monument that was the beginning of the healing of the wounds that their families and much of the rest of America carried well after the war's end. Today, an effort to heal the wounds among the living veterans, those who served in Vietnam more than a decade ago now for most of them. It was a welcome home parade in Chicago, a parade that drew well more than 100,000 marchers, and it is estimated more than 300,000 spectators. I'm Ron Majors, and I am live for this 4:30 special broadcast in Grant Park. Behind me is a replica of the Vietnam Memorial Wall, the monument in Washington, D.C. It is a half-size wall. It carries all the names, more than 58,000 names, those who gave the final sacrifice during the Vietnam conflict. That wall will stay up here in Grant Park until Sunday night at 6 o'clock. Throughout the weekend, this celebration will continue. On this day of celebrating and remembering and welcoming home, we started early. Channel 5's Paul Hogan was there along the parade route and is right now live at Petrillo Bandshell, where there are other events going on right now. Paul?
That's right, Ron. Just about everybody passed that wall where you are after the parade ended and ended up over here at the Petrillo Bandshell. Well, as you see behind me, tents have been set up. There is a stage presentation going on, and in fact, will go on all evening. A picnic atmosphere here. In fact, one of the participants says, hey, this is our Woodstock for Vietnam veterans. But as for the parade itself, for these forgotten vets who would rather forget the war they engaged in, it was quite a day to remember.
I got one more pitch and then I'll get into the song.
Thank you, Chicago! Thank you! This is how Chicago should work.
It was the largest tribute to Vietnam veterans since America's involvement ended 13 years ago. 150,000 marched. Several hundred thousand cheered, welcome home. Patty DeLuca's husband was a prisoner of war. Tony DeLuca escaped his tiger cage only to use one today to remind everyone of those still missing. For many years, some Vietnam veterans couldn't talk about it, wouldn't admit it, and did not take pride in what they had done. But even the anti-war vets marched to cheers and shouts of thank you today. General William Westmoreland, the controversial symbol of a war that fractured a nation, said it best: the past is history now. And thousands paused to salute him. 3.5 million men, 15,000 women, answered the call for a war that left this country wounded. It was a great day for those who survived. Not only those who survived, it was a great day for anybody who was there and who watched us, and as I'm sure all of us would agree. And the day continues here in Grant Park at Petrillo Bandshell, where the festivities continue, in fact, all through the weekend, all memorializing those who fought in a war that fractured the nation. And in some ways, I saw some anti-war vets out there today, Ron, also memorializing those, not only those who had the courage to fight in the war, but those who might have had the moral courage to oppose it, because they were there as well.
Paul, we are looking live now at the Vietnam Wall. We saw it just during the conclusion of your report, and the scene you saw is one that is typical of this wall. It is a half-size wall, as we told you, and while all of the festivities go on around us, when you approach this wall, set up near Jackson and Michigan, things get very quiet. There are moments when, as you see, people go to their knees. They reach out to touch a name that is now carved in stone, a name that in many cases was carved out of their life. It is extremely moving, and this wall will stay on display through Grant Park Sunday night at 6 o'clock. It is indeed a remarkable day throughout the city of Chicago, and at this moment in Grant Park, this is an enormous event made up of countless individual stories. Each story is unique. Each story is very poignant. One of those stories, as Deborah can tell us, is about someone we know well at Channel 5.
Indeed it is, Ron. This parade, of course, is a healing of wounds for so many veterans who took part in the Vietnam conflict. And for Channel 5 videotape editor Lou Benton, a former Green Beret lieutenant, today's parade is just another step in a journey that is both personal and to this day painful. Channel 5's Rich Samuels tells us why.
Monday night, Lou Benton was walking the streets of Chicago's Little Vietnam, looking for someone who had come from the village of Bien Hoa.
Do you have anybody from Bien Hoa?
Yeah.
That live here?
Yeah, I live in Bien Hoa.
By chance, he met Vu Ba Huynh, who came from Bien Hoa in 1980. It is Lou Benton's hope that Vu Ba Huynh may be able to unravel the mystery of an image Lou saw on television last year. An image from Vietnam of an Amerasian woman Lou believes to be his daughter, whom he left behind 17 years ago.
Editing movie.
Lou Benton edits news tape here at Channel 5. For 20 months beginning in January 1968, Lou Benton was a Green Beret in Vietnam.
I was stationed outside of a small village, well, small city is what they would call it, called Bien Hoa.
And it was at Bien Hoa that Lou met 19-year-old Le Nguyen Thuc, born of a Vietnamese mother and a French father.
You were in love with her?
Very much in love with her. And we had a baby girl.
Of Lee and Lou's child, whom they named My Lee, no photograph remains.
Describe the child to me.
Very beautiful. She was a third French, third Vietnamese, and a third black. I still see her face sometimes.
Even though you really have no photographs of her left?
Even though I have no photographs of her left.
Lou has other photographs he took in Vietnam. These are images he has purged from his mind. Lou has not purged from his mind the images of his daughter and his lover, whom he left in August 1969 when his tour in Vietnam ended. Lou hoped that Lee and his daughter might somehow join him. That has never happened. But now there is that television image.
What's your father's name?
Which came last year in a Today Show piece about Vietnamese children with American fathers.
No, they are going to be American.
In it, Lou saw a brief shot of a woman he believes is My Lee, his daughter.
It looks just like she looked when she was born. Same features, identical.
But in Vietnam today, there are perhaps as many as 20,000 children whose fathers are American.
There are only three things that are required for me to know my daughter. Number one, she had to have been born in December of '68. Number two, she had to have been born in the village of Bien Hoa. And number three, her father was Tum Huy Dep Ka. Tum Huy Dep Ka in Vietnamese means black lieutenant. And I was the only black lieutenant in Bien Hoa.
We live in Bien Hoa.
Now, Lou has met Vu Bao and his father, who are from Bien Hoa. And in Lou's photographs of his lover, they have seen something familiar.
She looked familiar with my mind. Because I lived in Bien Hoa for a long time ago.
These photographs will now be sent to relatives still in Bien Hoa, and perhaps they will find Lou's child and her mother, who on this photo dated December 14th, 1968, wrote to Lou, "Forget me not. Remember one thing. I love only you, no one else. Lee."
Forget me not. Remember one thing.
Words that mean the same no matter who repeats them or when.
What do those words mean in 1986?
The same as they meant then.
An image that will not go away.
How badly do you want to see that child again?
Very badly. Before I die.
Many who march today will now close a book open too long. For Lou Benton, that will not be the case. Rich Samuels, Channel 5 News.
Our coverage of Vietnam veterans' welcome home will continue. Now let's go back live to Grant Park and Ron Majors, who is with the man behind today's parade. Ron.
Deborah, that's correct. This started out as kind of a dream Tom Stack had as he was returning from the celebration in New York, which was the first welcome home parade. Tom served 1968 and 69 in the 9th Infantry in Vietnam. You were a platoon leader, a couple silver stars, a couple of bronze stars.
That's right.
You're flying back from New York. You had a wonderful experience there. Why did you think, let's do this in Chicago?
Because of what I had seen there, the healing of Americans, the overwhelming emotion, the upbeat feeling there. I knew veterans from our area needed that, and I knew people from our area needed that, and we hadn't had anything of that nature. And I just thought, you know, we're going to do it.
I just walked through over by the Petrillo bandshell, and I stopped and talked to a couple of guys, one of whom said something interesting. He said, until this morning, I was kind of embarrassed about this. I thought, it's really not that big a deal. It's too late anyway. As of this moment, he said, I don't know how to thank everybody who did it.
Right. I said before the parade, those who feel it's too late, those are the ones who need it the most. Those who figure they don't need it at all, they need it the most too. So today, we had fellows who called up 7 months ago, said, the heck with you, it's too late. It's 15 years too late. And the feeling today, the emotion, you can see it in their eyes. It was terrific.
Tom, how does that feeling compare with when you were marching in New York last year? You said coming across the bridge, it was such a sense of emotion, it was almost physical. Sitting on the grandstand today, watching the tear-filled faces of servicemen pass by. Can you describe that for us?
Well, New York was great, but nothing could top today. You know, the city I grew up in, the people who I worked with today, it was unbelievable. I was overwhelmed myself. It's just terrific what happened today. You couldn't tap it, what it did for veterans.
What do you think the numbers were? We're supposed to be the experts, the reporters. We walk around asking each other, how many do you think? What do you think?
What I heard from a couple of sponsors and a few other people, I heard that it was around 200,000 veterans that marched.
I think there were 200,000 marchers. The man who led the parade, even in front of General Westmoreland, the man who just walked across America like that on his hands.
Bob Whalen, what a guy. I mean, what an inspiration. He walked right in front of me, and the man is just unbelievable. This man started in 1982 and just finished a number of months back. He's just unbelievable.
You walked beside General Westmoreland at the start of that parade, right behind Bob Whalen. Did the general have anything to say to you when you first stepped out, as he started to see the people who had gathered for this?
He was filled with pride. He said this is going to be a great day, and it's just great for vets, and it's great. You know, he was overwhelmed, and him and Bob Whalen talked, and it was terrific. And Jim Patridge, Vietnam veteran, it changed that image. Here's a guy who, the way he helped disabled for what he did, the heroism he displayed saving that young girl last week. And, you know, there's so many vets that we can be proud of.
And all along the route, it was participatory. The spectators participated actively in the parade. They stepped out to give a hug, to shake a hand, to say thank you.
They were trying hard to get at everybody, General Westmoreland and everybody. It was just, it was euphoria. It was overwhelming what happened today. And it's going to go a long ways towards bringing recognition to the issues that are dear to veterans' hearts.
And how about the healing process? How long has it gone toward that goal?
I think Ron highlighted it, Deborah, just a few minutes ago, one example. And I saw a lot of examples of guys who had a lot inside themselves get it out today, and I think it really helped. And a lot of wives and friends and family members, too. You know, myself, my nephew served in Vietnam, my brother Joe's son, Danny, and to see him at the reviewing stand, he was a medic with the 101st Airborne Division. You know, it was great.
I haven't seen a person who has been near this event, nor have I talked to a single person who watched our coverage this morning from 10 to noon, who hasn't admitted almost instantly, I had a tear in my eye.
It was, I know I did.
I think we all did. Thanks, Tom, very
Thanks,
much.
Ron.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
Thanks,
we have
Chicago.
much more to come. Yeah, thanks, Chicago is right. There's much more to come, including a profile of some of the veterans who have faced really tough challenges through all of this, even after the war was over. Stay tuned to our special coverage.
General William Westmoreland called today's event an unprecedented event, one we will never forget. And indeed, anyone who was watching the parade, whether on television or standing beside the streets as the marchers went by, will never forget the emotion of today. It was running very high, both here in Chicago and elsewhere. Earlier, President Reagan recorded a message of welcome for the veterans.
Greetings to all of you gathered in Chicago for the Vietnam Veterans Welcome Home Parade. Cheering on our veterans is something America wants to do. Keeping faith with those whose names are found on the POW-MIA list is our duty. Clearly, the welcome home received by many of our brave men and women who served in Vietnam was less than they deserved, and that's putting it mildly. Today, however, Americans are making up for that. All over our country, citizens are joining together to honor those who served their country and the cause of freedom in South Vietnam. To all of you who are marching, I salute you. You have done us proud. God bless you.
Next month, when the Statue of Liberty is rededicated in New York, Vietnam veterans will once again be remembered. And Ron, it seems, as the President said, there is much being done now that wasn't done a decade ago.
Indeed, and there are many concerns from long ago that are still with us. You know that in the early years of the war in Vietnam, almost a quarter of the Americans who died were black. That was a disproportionately high number. And thousands of those who survived marched as an independent unit in today's parade. As Channel 5's Marlene McClinton tells us, many feel they fought 3 wars, one in Vietnam, one for recognition, and one for civil rights at home.
Let's go, gentlemen.
He was an orphan, placed in 32 foster homes, eventually put in a juvenile detention home here in Chicago. So for Sergeant James Hobson, the Vietnam War wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to him.
It affected me in a positive way. I have no remorse, no animosity towards my country. I love my country, and I love the military service. As a matter of fact, I wish I could have stayed in, but it was just not in the cards.
Hobson says it was his traumatic upbringing that steeled him against the racism and injustices virtually all black soldiers suffered in Vietnam. He works with youngsters now, turning around one of the roughest city parks.
Cannon fodder, somebody coined the term one time.
Milton Olive II, whose only child threw himself on a hand grenade to save 4 fellow soldiers, feels now his son died in vain. The war was in vain. The sacrifices and contributions of black veterans are taken in vain.
It's unprecedented that veterans have had to fight a war 10,000 miles from home, and then had to come home and fight on their own turf.